Good morning, Finance and Coffee, and welcome to the first live chat for the year. Got a special guest with us today, the awesome Julian Wills from Finsure. Julian is the head of governance and risk at Finsure. Had to make sure that I had get that right, mate. So thank you, Julian, for taking time to chat with us today.
Little D, how you doing, champion?
I'm doing good. Basically, this is the first day where the children are out the door, so I can actually do proper work. So, I've been waiting for this day for a while because, I don't have a real job, so I have to do everything else when the kids are in the house. So
when you say proper work, I immediately become skeptical. But see, my kids are old, I got 19 and 16, right? And you remember maybe when you were a teenager, I remember this. I would sneak home just before my dad went to work. My kids don't even make the effort, mate. They're rolling in the door at 10 a.m. Hi, Dad.
That's awesome. But all kids aside, I mean, I love them to bits. But geez, I was really happy that they actually walked out the door this morning.
Yeah.
Very saves my sanity.
Here I am in the suit with the fancy tie this morning, and I tell you all the shitty stuff that happened during COVID, and there was a lot of negativity. One of the things we got real good at during COVID, work from home, man. I got to go to the office today. I'm not happy about it.
Well, you're dressed up for it, so that's awesome.
I've worn pants every day, I promise you, but this is the first time I've worn a tie in a while.
That's I don't know what to say about that. I am wearing pants too, but I won't prove it. But I know that your time is precious, and I do thank you very much for taking this quick chat with us. Obviously, you're here because you actually assist us greatly in terms of guiding me in terms of what's happening in the group. Is this not right or not, right? And I very much appreciate that.
As long as you pay for lunch, buddy, I'm happy to catch up with you whenever.
Yeah, mate. Look, McDonald's easy.
All the items on the planet, as long as you pay for lunch.
Anyway, we are here to talk about serious stuff, and so I won't go through a lot of stuff today. Just probably two quick things. Obviously, we are at the at the start of the year. Everyone's, you should have prepped your, I suppose you call it your business plans last year if you haven't. Now's probably a good time to do it. But probably one of the first things I'd like you as brokers to look at is your websites, right? Because I think it's quite funny because if you guys have been on the group for a while now, you probably noticed that you might have seen ads from other brokers appearing either on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or elsewhere. And then we get the odd screenshot and saying, hey, is this right? Is this offer correct? Or is this is this compliant? So I thought there's no better person to ask than Julian, right? So I guess I've just got three quick questions for you, mate, with regards to things which are basically floating around in the digital space. I guess also, brokers are not tech people, so most of the time you probably wouldn't have built your own website. You would have got someone else to build it for you. Sometimes you probably would have done it on the cheap as well, gone into Fiverr and got someone to do it. But my first question to you, mate, is what is the bare bones minimum that a broker needs to show on their website?
Good question. Not really so much, Deanne, about the bare minimum. The bare minimum will get it done, but maybe a little bit more effort will keep you very, very safe. ASIC, in their usual fashion, have a regulatory guide on this one, and it's RG234. And there is a different standard, interestingly enough, for different forms of media. For example, a billboard carries a different requirement to a website, and your website carries a different requirement to your email, auto signature, and business cards, and all this type of stuff. But when you're looking at your website as a straight up, there are a number of there's just probably too many to list. One of the ones that we see most frequently that brokers are leaving off with specific reference to their website is number one, their ACL or credit rep. So their licensee and their credit rep details. That must be on your website, must be listed on your website clearly, along with your external dispute resolution scheme and how someone can make a complaint. These are two very important factors, just with regard to the basic structure of your website. So number one is must have your license detail, and if you're a credit representative, credit rep number. Also, generally speaking, where we find this next part for AFCA is in the either sort of feedback or complaints and compliments. Is you have a section which is make a complaint. If you're not satisfied with that complaint, or you're not satisfied with the resolution of that, you can contact our external dispute resolution provider, which is AFCA. Now, in the interests of not waffling on forever and a day, I've been told I have a tendency to do that. What I can do is I could probably produce a cheat sheet for you for F&C that you can post that sort of gives people the general guidance out of RG234 with regard to your website and potentially some other real key aspects with regard to media and with regard to advertising. You and I have spoken on a number of occasions, and I see it all the time on Facebook. People advertising, people with the Facebook adverts with no comparison rate. I mean, that's just, I look at it and I cringe. The sort of the thoughts that go through my head, Dian. I mean, the murderous thoughts that go through my head when I see a Finsure broker with an ad on Facebook with no comparison rate. It's just like,
you can't use the word murderous on Facebook in case the bot picks it up. So sorry.
Oh, really? Of all the things I'll say, that's the one I get picked up on. Nevertheless, but I mean, you get the gist. So again, what I can do is if you'd like, just punch out a pretty simple cheat sheet for you that you can publish for everybody. Again, this is not Finsure specific stuff. This is industry stuff. And if you don't have it and you don't know, or you don't know where to look for it in your aggregator software, easy. Now, I'm not saying that this will keep you in line with your aggregator's expectations. I am saying it will keep you in line with ASIC's expectations. Again, read into that what you like.
Mate, thank you. And basically just as I suppose you call it a tag on in terms of what you just said, right? Because one of the things we do notice on the group is that, sometimes we get the odd, how do I put it, an ad from another brokerage which displays the wrong rate or the wrong rebate, which is no longer available.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, sorry, I cut you off there, bro.
Then I'm saying, so, I'm personally, I think that's pretty serious, but what's your call?
Only a little. So if we look at every form of legislation, whether it be, Corporations Act with misleading and deceptive conduct, whether it be the Privacy Act and the Credit Reporting Code of Conduct, where information must be accurate, up to date, not misleading, and up to date, not misleading, and there's another one. Doesn't matter. Don't have to worry about it. However, in looking at that, if you're advertising a product that is no longer valid, looking at the likely outcome, is ASIC going to be particularly interested in a one-off error? No. AFCA, here is where the problem lies. Herein lies the rub, Mr. Lee. AFCA are not bound by any form of legal precedent nor jurisprudence. So they can act in accordance with their expectations. So if a customer makes a complaint to AFCA saying, hey, listen, I contacted this broker and I went through this long and arduous process, and the rate that, or the product that I thought I was going to get was no longer available, AFCA are entitled to award what we refer to as non-financial loss. So direct financial loss, where someone has lost money or they've invested in something and lost, is very different. Non-financial loss, you can receive up to $5,400 per claim. Now, if someone wanted a split loan, that's 2 claims. So that's $10,800 all of a sudden. Now, if you combine that with the fact, now we'll look at a standard residential mortgage that's been advertised with a cashback that wasn't valid, that the customer has come to you specifically or engaged with you specifically for that. $5,400 for that. $9,600, I think it is, to get to an ombudsman's decision with AFCA. So all of a sudden, you're in a $15,000 hole. For what? I mean, we see, and I know we're going to talk about clawback, and I'm not going to engage on that now, but we see a lot of people saying, I did all the work and, blah, 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 blah. Well, this is much, much worse. Much, much worse. This is a situation where, you must. Now, looking at all of the aggregator software, these things are updated daily, I believe. I know ours is, right? So updated product specs and these types of things updated daily. So before you launch any type of advertising or media to that effect, absolutely check the accuracy of it. Also check the open and close dates of it. For example, you will note most of the advertisements from the banks. You'll see for applications received before the 31st of December, and settled before the 1st of June to 2023. That's the type of stuff that we see standard. There are also standard declarations that we see. Past performance is no indication of future performance. The big guys are very good at getting this stuff right, because we see what happens when they get it wrong. When they get it wrong, we see 35, 40, $50 million fines. When a broker gets it wrong, we probably don't hear a lot about it. But again, making sure that we're in line with expectations. As you said in the beginning, Jen, sort of January was a fantastic time for brokerages and smaller enterprises to do their business planning for the year. What is 2023? What does it look like for me? Yep. Part of that, I think, should be about setting a standard for yourself that really, what we talked about earlier was, what's the bare minimum? What's the skeletal structure of what I need? And this thing is just going ballistic this morning. It will not stop.
You're very, very famous and needed at the moment. So thank you.
Yeah. Looking at that, just making sure, obviously, that you're in line with.
Yeah. So basically, with regards to that as well, I mean, just because you're using an external advertising agency to do your promotions via Facebook and so forth, it's not going to shield you. You're still going to get in the shit, right? So that's my observation. Yeah, I say that because I've had people come to me and go, oh, that ad that was put on by another broker, can you please take it down? That it was done by mistake by our agencies. And that just makes me laugh, because they represent you. You're in the shit. No, you can't blame someone else. Now, just briefly as well, because I know that, I suppose brokers are not aware, but that you basically, did you just take a shot? Okay. I know, so I'm not sure if most brokers are aware of this, but when you sign up for your accreditations, you would have also probably had a signature somewhere requesting use of a bank's logo, right? If you haven't, please look into your
Sorry, I don't know what was going on. 10 a.m. Everybody's on the phone.
I don't know. But requesting a bank to use their logo.
Yeah. All right. So looking at that again, in all of the introducer agreements, there is a provision that says not use our logo without consent. Be very, very careful as to how you go about that. And if you want to use a bank's logo, now using their logo on your website, FBAA, MFAA, these types of things, most people consent to that. They don't have a problem with it. But when you're using it specifically to advertise a product, there are very specific prohibitions against that. They're both contractual and legal. So just be very, very mindful of the fact that you can't just grab someone else's logo and bang it on your advertising. The representation there, one of the legal principles is the representation is that you're representing the bank. Now, you don't represent that institution in any way, shape, or form, but it might lead a consumer to believe that you do. So there's one just straight off misleading and deceptive conduct from the Corporations Act. We look at the contractual obligations and the contractual requirements that the aggregator has with the lender, and then that you have. Every introducer agreement, whether you're a credit rep or a sub-originator or whatever it might be, says not use logo without consent. So be very mindful of that. One of the other things to be mindful of is with regard to that the advertising is to ensure that number one, obviously the comparison rates and things along those lines, but to ensure that they're accurate, up to date, not misleading. Very, very important. I mean, all very, very simple stuff, but the amount of times we see people get that wrong is just crazy, D.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just looking at the time, I know that you're very short on it as well. So let's talk to the last thing, because this is the one where I suppose we started our conversations with privately, and I thought, holy shit, I need to have a chat about this massively, right?
I'm watching you, Ian. I'm watching you, bro.
Absolutely. So this one, if you can sort of see below, RG 273.119. So over the holiday breaks, what has happened is that in the group, there's a lot of, there was a fair few posts about brokers receiving clawbacks, and it's heartbreaking, especially at the holiday period, right? It's just an unnecessary cost to a business, and most brokers run, it's family business. It hurts. What we do see from time to time is the fact that, it's like, well, I might talk to my clients about basically delaying their settlement. I know they're leaving. I'm going to get a clawback, but I'm going to see if we can delay their settlement so that I don't cop a clawback. And I'm just saying that as opposed to not me personally, right? I was not aware that could get you into a lot of trouble.
That's
Right?
because you commented on the post, right?
Well, it's not about yeah. So you know, in all fairness, like what's happening in the group stays in the group, which is fine. I
Yeah,
was
no, no.
getting screenshots,
Yeah.
right? What I'm more concerned about is actually because as a business, you're probably going to message or communicate that particular line with your customer,
Yeah.
right? So so let me know. Can you just quickly explain to the audience how bad that is?
Yeah, yeah. There is no level. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 38. So, looking at the best interest duty, there are two primary parts to the mortgage broker best interest duty. Right? There is number one, the provision of best interest, but then obviously the one of the secondary parts to that is the conflict priority rule. And the conflict priority rule, in simple terms, is you can't place your own interests in front of the consumers. Now, in looking at conflict priority as sort of the extent that it rolls to, we break it down right from 2011 with the introduction of the National Consumer Credit Protection Act and the implementation of responsible lending. The provision of credit assistance is where you assist someone into a new product or you assist someone in staying in the current product. Now, suggesting to someone that they stay in the current product, even for another day, you are engaging in credit assistance. So then you need to make sure that you're complying with the best interest duty. Now, the provision, obviously, that we're talking about is 119, as it says at the bottom of the screen. And what that specifically speaks to encouraging someone to not refinance or to stay in their current product to avoid the clawback. That says my interests are more important than yours. Now, I haven't seen any, sort of negative outcome as a result of someone encouraging that to happen. Now, what we know for sure, Dan, is that it happens. It happens because clawback is a shitty, terrible part of our industry that, and I'm not going to soapbox and say, oh, we're doing all this stuff, right? It's terrible. Encouraging someone to stay in their product. Now, the part that I dread, right? The part that I dread the most is where a broker may very well do that. It's an inadvertent breach. I didn't know I wasn't allowed. I mean, it's our obligation to ensure that you have that information. But look, I didn't know. I was just, like I was under a lot of pressure. And it's a $15,000 clawback or it's a $6,000 clawback. But then, the customer stays in that product, until the end of the month. No worries. But as at the first Tuesday of every month, the RBA puts the rates up. Now the customer's in a significantly worse position. I have seen AFCA in previous instances where a rate lock may not have been lodged on time and the rate went up. The broker is required to cover the difference in the rate for the period of period of impact. So if it was a 4-year fix, you've got to cover that 0.5 on $1 million loan for 4 years. So my advice to everybody is, and again, reading the regulatory guidance is not something that anybody else does for fun.
You're just psychotic.
However, there are probably some key provisions within the best interest duty that the broker group in general, it doesn't matter where you're from, the broker group in general probably haven't got the appropriate amount of information or knowledge about. And I think at some point in time, someone has to take responsibility and say, look, I know this stuff. And it's due time that we actually do something about it, making sure that every broker has access to the right amount of information. So, again, obviously we've got this session today on this specific provision of RG273, but there's so much more, sort of when I'm engaging with brokers, and it happens all the time. They say, oh, I was thinking about doing this. It's like, oh, RG273.119, can't do it. And they're just like, wow, Jesus, why not? So what we might need to do, Dean, is understand sort of, we'll scroll through, you and I can scroll through sort of some of the previous posts and understand where some of the gaps are in the regulatory knowledge by the broker group, and not point fingers and, not call out anybody in particular. But then we can actually start to address some formalized, sort of sessions with you and actually cover these things off. And what we may be able to do is if we can get some cooperation from the MF or FBAA, maybe have some CPD points allocated to that. Do some specific training. Because when I saw the post yesterday, and again, I'm not calling anybody out, not by any stretch, because I read the post. It made us heartbreaking. When people do that and they're in that position, it's just like, oh man, that's terrible. But as I was reading,
it was also a post that was a couple of weeks old, so
yeah.
not something that was recent. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, don't panic. It doesn't matter who it was. That's irrelevant. But as I was reading through, right, and I was waiting to get to a comment, where someone said, "Hey, dude, you can't do that," and it didn't come. And I got to about 100 comments in. I was like, "Oh, geez, there's a real gap here," and we probably haven't. But we probably no, don't worry about what we could have done. We can do more. We can do more to make sure that our broker group. We've got a network, or you have a network, DN, where people can voice their concerns and their frustrations, and that's a beautiful thing, right? Particularly over that COVID period where we're all locked at home, working from home. What a terrible outcome. However, what you've done is you've created an environment now where we can actually identify some gaps in broker knowledge and potentially in performance. New people that are newer to the industry that have come in post best interest duty didn't know what the world was before that. I'm sure there's some stuff in here about responsible lending. I was reading some stuff this morning about robo debt, right? And the impacts of robo debt. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what robo debt was. And I looked at it, I thought, oh, wow, geez, that's a good one, isn't it? But going through, I'm blessed and fortunate enough to be in a position where I have the time allocated to actually do that kind of research. And look, I'll be honoured to be able to share that with the group. I'm not saying the Finsure group. I mean, I do it with Finsure anyways. I'm saying the greater group in general, just to make sure that we can eliminate some of these gaps, bro.
Yep. No, mate, thank you so much for your time. There was only one little comment. Funny, the government didn't like that, but are okay with discharges taking longer than they did 10 years ago. So I think that might be another conversation for another different.
Let's do a longer session, maybe towards the end of February, and we can talk about some of those things.
Absolutely.
The intentional interference with the contracts on cashback. Yep. It's a contractual tort. The significant delays they're experiencing on discharge, which again is an intentional ploy for retention. So again, I'm happy to talk about that stuff and give you my opinion. It's my opinion. I'll take off my Finsure shirt. It's my opinion, not Finsure's, but happy with that. Deanne, thank you for your time, brother.
Thank you. Chat soon. Bye.